listening to the Eagle Eye Focus Sports Talk podcast with your host, Louis Debe.
Coming up on this edition, we have the update on Jeremy Maclin and him tearing his ACL, the Riley Cooper situation, quarterback battle, and more.
Start this drive at their own 20. So I think among the three of us, Troy, you and I are on the same page with regard to going for it. You've got a tired defensive front. Packers, the way they've run the ball all year, they elect not to try it. They punt the ball to Philadelphia, and now Donovan McNabb has it sitting all right out in front of him if he can get the Eagles down the field.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to have seen Josh Bidwell make a little better punt right there. They basically only gained 20 yards of field position by punting the ball as opposed to going for it, even if they did not make the first down. But you're absolutely right, Joe. You touched on a little bit earlier, Ed Donatel, the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. Now's the time that he's got to rally these guys, and it really is going to be him matching schemes against what Andy Reid's doing offensively to try to stop him.
This is no gimme, though, in this stadium, kicking in this direction, even for David Akers, second most accurate kicker of all time in the NFL.
37-yard try. His numbers during the regular season. Akers. And this game is 5 seconds away from overtime. Akers makes it. Carolina Panthers and the Philadelphia Eagles right here next Sunday night.
Trying to call timeout. He can't call back-to-back timeouts.
Alright, so today on the Eagle Eye Focus Sports Talk podcast, we are back, obviously. Much headlines like Sam Ty said, our producer.
Yeah.
Jeremy Maclin tearing his ACL. I mean, this is huge. The Eagles pretty much lose to me their most complete receiver. And I know this is kind of late on the headlines, but honestly, this is still huge on what receiver is going to step up. And this can be many of them, and obviously we'll get to Riley Cooper off the field, that situation in a little bit. But he honestly could have been the leading role guy in order to be the next outside guy. He's got the size and the speed and the good hands to run this offense, I think, well. Jason Avant is another guy that could step up. But personally, to me, I think Jason Avant is better in the slot. It's just interesting to see how many times they're going to run a three-receiver set with all your tight ends, with Zach Ertz, James Casey, and Brent Selleck. Honestly, I think the guy that's going to make the biggest impact next to Deshaun Jackson is Demarcus Johnson, the other receiver that honestly resembles Deshaun Jackson a lot. I personally think that Demarcus Johnson with Maclin really wasn't really needed. I think that, yes, you can use all those speedy guys in Chip Kelly's offense, but we have that guy. I think you should have given that spot to an Aurelius Ben or an Ifeanyi Moma, who, to me, now I think almost is really close to making the roster spot. Also, Russell Shepard. So we'll talk about those guys in a little bit. But the Macklin ACL, he's on the IR. He's out for the season. This was huge with his contract year. It's not good for him, obviously. So let's get to the next topic. Jason Phillips also tore his ACL. So the injuries for the Eagles are significant. Also, an update on today's training camp, which is August the 1st, is Jason Peters is day-to-day with a hamstring injury. He should be okay. Deshaun Jackson has a toe injury, but again, nothing serious. But these injuries you just don't want to keep seeing happening. Jason Phillips, they got over from the Carolina Panthers. He was a linebacker, a very good, productive guy from special teams. And I think that he was going to come in and be a huge part of that special teams defensively with Colt Anderson as well, the backup safety, who to me was the best special teams player for the Eagles. What does this do for the Eagles special teams? Well, last year it was horrid. That's why they brought this guy in, is personally to change that, because last year their tackling was terrible in special teams. And losing this guy is honestly almost as big as not losing Jeremy Maclin, because he's a Pro Bowl potential player, but it's huge, and you can't just keep having these injuries, and with all these distractions the Eagles are having in their first year under Chip Kelly, it's tough. But it's definitely going to affect the Eagles, these two injuries, and the Maclin one's huge. Now, what is Howie Roseman going to do? Is he going to re-sign Maclin? I think it's going to be a small amount of money deal for maybe 1 or 2 years to see what Maclin can do coming off this injury. So let's move on, and I know our producer, Sam Ty, has a relative opinion on this. Riley Cooper has made racist slurs at a Kenny Chesney concert. With the N-word, and it really didn't affect it. I think it's going to affect the locker room. And honestly, what, you don't have an opinion on this, Sam?
Riley Cooper just needs to shut up.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay.
One clip of my growing soundboard, rather.
Soundboard's coming up. It's another production of the podcast. But I mean, honestly, Michael Vick said most of the team forgave him and that he knows the type of guy Riley Cooper is. But then you have LeSean McCoy releasing a statement that he lost respect for him, and knowing that Riley Cooper thought he was off camera, showing his true colors. He doesn't know if he can respect a guy like that. So this is definitely going to tear the locker room. Honestly, I think they might have to part ways with Cooper. Yes, he's such a good player, and they say they're going to keep this within the team, and they're going to keep him on the roster. But honestly, it's just, it's out of bounds when you're an NFL player and you're with so many different people. That's something that you just can't say, that you've been taught since you were little not to say, and it's pretty immature to me, and it really, I think, bothers a lot of Eagles fans and the community in Philadelphia.
Well, I know that it was serious, and you're not supposed to say that kind of stuff when you're working with people like that. But I don't think that it's that serious that he should get kicked off the team and it should go into major actions. I think he was at a concert. He was probably drunk or something. His mind wasn't thoroughly thinking, and I don't think this should take major actions to get him kicked off the team.
It's dividing the locker room, though.
But
shut up, Sam. You're a producer. Don't talk. I'm just kidding. But yeah, there's two sides to it. Obviously that word is tossed around a lot, like you said. Did you say that, Sam?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
No.
Oh.
I just think that it shouldn't be that big of a deal. He said one word. He regrets it. He's sorry. I don't think it should be.
He has to get sensitivity training now, like these two.
I just don't think it's that serious.
Okay, so yeah, but it's been the big headlines for 2 straight days, and it is. I can see where it's getting kind of repetitive. I think they should just move on from it, keep it within the locker room, and if you can't handle it, then he needs to be removed from the team. But I think they can handle it. I think LeSean McCoy. Obviously some players, like the new players, if they don't know what kind of person Riley Cooper is, it's going to take them more time to get over it than others. But he's a huge part of this offense. He needs to get his act together because the Eagles need him now with Maclin down. He's, to me, other than Deshaun Jackson and Jason Avant, he's the most experienced receiver on this team. So he needs to be ready for the season, and I think that this just is unnecessary. And honestly, it's annoying because they have so much stuff that they have to do, getting this fast-paced offense, trying to decide what quarterback they're gonna have, and then this using my language, this crap just comes up, and it's just unnecessary.
Yeah, and he did have a.
Yes, that is true.
That is from Scream 2.
And they all. The undergoing message board with the quotes from the movies.
Yes.
Which, how many you saw Scream 2, but...
One of my all-time favorites.
Okay. So, let's move on from the Riley Cooper situation, because I think you've heard enough about that already in the past couple of days. And I'm sure you'll hear about it more, because the national media is annoying. Which is why I like the PhiladelphiaEagles.com and those that are just stop talking about it. Because ESPN and NFL Network, they're terrible with this stuff. So, let's move on, but we're going to stick on the offensive side and stick with receiving. The Eagles brought in James Casey from free agency from the Houston Texans. They also brought in Zach Ertz with their second-round pick from Stanford. Pull up, I want to see some James Casey stats. From last season, he's very versatile, but he did not see the field much last year due to Owen Daniels being a major factor. But if he could at least get over 3 touchdowns this season, I think it would be huge. And they brought him in. They also brought in Zach Ertz, who was a second-round pick from Stanford. And I know this already because I posted my article. Go check it out on my blog, eaglesportstalk.blogspot.com. Putting in my plug now, even though you're probably already on it. Zach Ertz had over 700 yards, 800 yards this year, 7 touchdowns. If he can keep that production in Philadelphia, it'll be huge. Sam Ty, give me the stats for James Casey.
When he was on the Texans, he had 34 receptions, 2012, 330 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Okay, and that's exactly, with that kind of team that didn't really use his abilities as much, this is a perfect fit for the Philadelphia Eagles. Plus, here's a note, too. He was the starting fullback last year. They moved him to fullback instead of tight end, which not a lot of people know. He played tight end his second year with the Texans, and then his last year he played fullback. That's how versatile he is. You can line him up in the slot. You can put him at running back, fullback, tight end, which is exactly what Chip Kelly wants, is versatility. Honestly, this is how you can utilize him, Ertz, and Brent Selleck is. You can have Brent Selleck on the line as your natural tight end. You have Zach Ertz in the slot. You have James Casey as a fullbacker in the slot, and then you have Deshaun Jackson and maybe Riley Cooper on the outside or Jason Avant. And LeSean McCoy in the backfield. That's incredible. There's so many offensive weapons with they really need to use all these tight ends. I predict only 330 yards and 3 touchdowns for James Casey. Not enough from last year. I predict this year, and I posted online, he'll have at least 500 yards, and I predict 4 or 5 touchdowns. I think he's going to up his production because Chip Kelly knows how to use a guy like this. Perfect player, and Zach Ertz, by the way, to me is looking the best out of all of them. He's a monster. He's starting to remind me more of Rob Gronkowski every time. He's got that rare speed and size and athleticism that most tight ends nowadays are becoming. Instead of just normal blocking tight ends, they're becoming these amazing pass catchers, and which is what you need. You need versatility at each position. You have Brent Selleck, who's the best blocker on the team, best blocking tight end. James Casey, the most versatile, and Ertz, to me, is the most dominant. I predict after 2 years, Ertz is going to become one of the best tight ends in the league. That's just my opinion. So that's what I think. And so now we're going to move on. We're going to go to special teams now, and we're going to talk about punt returning. Demarcus Johnson was the punt returner last year, but you still have Deshaun Jackson, who we all know what he did within the Miracle in the New Meadowlands, and he went to the Pro Bowl as a punt returner, first player ever to be a receiver and punt returner, and first player ever to go to the Pro Bowl at 2 positions. And Deshaun Jackson is saying, as of right now, he told the press 2 days ago that he is the #1 punt returner. So I think that's pretty huge for him to say. But now with the Jeremy Maclin injury, you might want to rethink that. And then I think that honestly, if Deshaun is your best chance to score in special teams, they have not scored a punt returning touchdown since 2010, since that Miracle in the New Meadowlands. I mean, that's to me not good when you have Demarcus Johnson, who's very capable of doing that. I think one of those two is going to be a huge impactful player at that position, but I think you need to take a chance. You need to put Deshaun Jackson there. But people are saying as of right now, Demarcus Johnson's going to win that job and be a big part of this team. He's going to be everywhere, I think, this season. If he was taller, he would be one of the best receivers on this team. Well, he still is. I mean, he would be a much more impactful player. And I can't believe they got this guy in free agency last year, undrafted. I mean, it's pretty incredible to see what he can do, but the best option is for Deshaun. It's no coincidence that after taking him off, you haven't gotten any production out of that position since. Alright, let's move on. We're going to go to one more thing. Well, we're going to go to a couple more things, but let's go to the defensive side of the football, where some not as big names, young players that are coming into the Philadelphia Eagles are making some big headlines and are making some big plays in training camp, as it is limited since there's not a huge amount of hitting, with linebacker Emmanuel Acho, who they got from the Cleveland Browns, and also they have safety, second-year safety for the Eagles, David Sims. Sammy, I believe we're having David Sims, right?
Yes.
So we're having.
He is on cue for the podcast.
All right, cool. So we'll have him on. He'll get him on the podcast soon. We're gonna talk with David Sims about the potentially of him winning the starting spot, and it's a long shot because of Kenny Phillips and Patrick Chung and the fifth-round pick Earl Wolf and Nate Allen and even Kurt Coleman. That's one of our most stacked positions, but the production hasn't been at that position since Quentin Michael and Brian Dawkins left. I think David Sims, but even PhiladelphiaEagles.com posted a practice training camp report and saying that David Sims is making a huge impact. He's one of the guys that are really sticking out. He's making huge tackles, big plays on the field, and we're gonna have him on in the next week before the preseason starts to get his intake. And I think, that's good. That'll be our second player. We had offensive guard Julian Vandervelde coming on. I think he's got a good shot to make the roster as well, but he really needs to look good in the in the preseason, because offensive guards tend to disappear in training camp since it's not one of the flashiest positions. So Emmanuel Acho, though, is an interesting position. The Eagles aren't going to keep many inside linebackers as they're running a 3-4. I think you're going to keep at least 4. Emmanuel Acho, I want to see, Sam Ty, can you pull up his college stats? I don't know if you can do that or not, but make that happen. He did not significantly play. He had a torn ACL against Cleveland Browns, which is why he did not get many. Give me his total tackles, and did he have? Give me some sacks, because this guy's potentially a very versatile player that could line up at a lot of spots. He kind of resembles Michael Kendricks. Give me it.
In 2011, he had 3 sacks.
Wow, and he's an inside linebacker, so that's really impressive. Yeah.
And he had 110 tackles.
That's huge.
A lot.
He was, I think, one of the leading tacklers on that team. That's pretty big. Plus, just give me a rundown of his sacks each year. Yeah, he was in college. Because don't give me the first year because he was a freshman and he didn't start much. But give me the 3-year rundown.
So, like I mentioned before, 2011 he had 3 sacks. 2010 he had 2.5 sacks. In 2009, he had 2 sacks. So he basically went up a half a sack each year.
That's true. That's huge. So, I mean, Emmanuel Acho definitely has a good chance at making this roster. I think you're gonna have D'Amico Ryans and Kendricks, but then look at someone like Acho, who's to me is gonna make the roster, and then you have Casey Matthews and Jamar Chaney, but I have not seen either one of them once. I don't know. I have not seen either one of them making an impact at all. I don't think they're adjusting to the system at all. And I just think that it's time to move on from those 2 players. I think that we've seen what they can do, kind of more of an Andy Reid era type, 2 Andy Reid era type players, which I think potentially are going to get cut. I think that Casey Matthews and Jamar Chaney, one of them are going to be off the team. And I think Acho is definitely. I think David Sims, but with the safeties though, if Kenny Phillips and Patrick Chung can stay healthy, I think they're the 2 starters. I think those 2 are locks to make the roster. Unless Kenny Phillips just can't stay healthy, they'll cut him. They'll keep those 2. I think Earl Wolf's definitely a lock, and then David. It depends on how many they keep. I think they'll keep 4. I don't think they're going to keep 5. They actually might, because don't forget Colt Anderson, who's a huge part. They'll probably keep 5. I think they'll go Patrick Chung, Kenny Phillips, Earl Wolf, Colt Anderson, and then honestly, can David Sims beat out Nate Allen and Kurt Coleman? That's what he has to do. He has to outshine them in the preseason in order to make it. We'll talk to him about that in the next couple days. Sam Ty will get him on the podcast.
Yippers.
And so that's going to be that for the defense. So we're going to talk about Michael Vick, and obviously the biggest name on the Philadelphia Eagles, even though honestly he shouldn't be. I'm still. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know, boo, but I gotta see more about him.
I've never liked him.
Okay, so he's
Dog hater.
He's taking alright, that's kind of late. That's too old, Sam Ty. Shut up.
Once a killer, always a killer.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Go back in your hole.
What?
Who do you think you are?
I don't live in a hole.
Choke yourself in your tie.
I'm not even wearing a tie.
Okay.
Where did they even get that from?
I don't know. It's
Urban
an
legend?
inside joke from the NFL Network. Michael Vick is what? So Michael.
All right, we gotta come down here.
Okay, let's talk about
Get
Michael
back
Vick.
to the Eagles.
He's taking a huge step in training camp. I think honestly he's overrising himself over Nick Foles.
Get a hold of yourself.
God, this producer. Medusa the producer, that's what I always say.
I don't know why.
Sorry. So, Michael Vick, honestly, I think he's playing much better than Nick Foles. Nick Foles is showing that he's a better decision maker, like he's getting his throws off better. But Michael Vick, potentially, I was just thinking, honestly, to me, Michael Vick is the name, but the thing about the Riley Cooper situation is, who made the statement? It wasn't Nick Foles, it was Michael Vick. And I think that players still see him as a leader on this football team, and I think that's huge in the quarterback race. He's made some huge plays. The last play of training camp yesterday was a bomb over Nate Allen. No, it was over David Sims. Nope, I'm trying to think of that. It was over Bradley Fletcher. Yeah, I don't know. So, I think Deshaun Jackson... Shut up! I'm trying, alright? Vick threw a huge bomb to Deshaun Jackson. That's the connection you still need to see. If he can show that explosiveness. But again, if he rolled his ankle in practice today, which is another update. He is okay, but you do not want to get him injured if you're going to start him. I think he's got to really outplay Foles in the preseason. And that's another thing I'm going to bring it to is how they're going to manage the quarterback play in the preseason. Honestly, I think you need to cut G.J. Kenny and just hold the snaps for the other four. Because he's clearly not making the roster, in my opinion. I think the first game you should start Vick. I think the second game you should start Foles. Third game, start Vick. And honestly, fourth game, start Foles. Yes, Barkley and Dixon are still in it, but you're going to give them first team reps. Just because you're starting the game doesn't mean you play throughout the whole first half, which is when the players play. I think Vick is going to be huge in the preseason, which has not been as of late. So I think that I think Nick Foles, to me, is going to be a backup for this team. I think Dennis Dixon's the one that really needs to play really well in the preseason in order to make a roster spot and really maybe make Chip Kelly question the decision to start Victor Foles and Barkley. I think you're going to see mostly Vick and Foles getting the first half snaps. Then you'll see Barkley probably get the third quarter and Dennis Dixon the fourth. But then you got to give Barkley and Dixon in the first half though if you want to see if they can start. I think Kelly's going to manage the tie, but again, it's going to be the preseason this year is going to be super fun to watch. I don't know how much Chip Kelly's going to show of his offense. Yeah, I don't know how much of his offense Chip Kelly's going to show because there's so much of it. But I think that you're going to get a little glimpse here and there. So that's it with Vick. But again, he's being looked at as the leader of this team, and his explosiveness definitely fits the system. But again, I personally think it's Dennis Dixon. And people, if they listen to the podcast, I'm sure have had enough of the Dixon talk. But it's reasonable, and I think it should be because he's a perfect fit for the offense in Oregon. So it's very reasonable, and also Barkley, obviously, we'll see if he's the quarterback of the future. Dennis Dixon and Matt Barkley are going to be huge. To me, I think they're very good players. In training camp, honestly, if you're thinking about it, Nick Foles and Vick, yeah, they're the front runners, but who's thrown the football the best? Honestly, it's Dennis Dixon and Matt Barkley. They've ran the offense better, getting the team up quickly, getting the throws off fast. They have the quickest release. I just think Nick Foles and maybe not Nick Foles. None of them have slow releasers. They're not Tim Tebow with the whole lefty hook. But I think Dixon and Barkley are experienced at fast-paced offenses, and Barkley's played against Oregon, so he knows some. But they say that Dave Spadaro of the PhiladelphiaEagles.com has said Dixon's put some nice zip on the ball, and he's really throwing well. He was the best quarterback playing at Lincoln Financial Field on that Sunday practice, their first padded one. So, it's up in the air, but the only guy that's not going to make it is G.J. Kenny. You're not going to make the team. I'm sorry. That's just not going to happen.
Funny guy.
No, it's just not going to happen.
The way you said it.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go back to receivers. I don't know. G.J. Kenny, obviously, he's not making the team. Do you even know who he is, Sam?
No.
His production is just not good.
Not good at all.
Yeah, and he's a low-level quarterback. But if he can get film on, if he plays preseason, that's absurd because there's not enough snaps as there is for 4 quarterbacks, which is why I'm kind of scared for Dennis Dixon. Even though I just feel he's not going to get a fair shot.
Me neither.
I'll stop talking about him because I could talk about him forever.
I don't know why.
I want to talk about 2 guys that aren't big names that I already mentioned is Russell Shepard and Ifeanyi Moma. Both, I believe, undrafted rookies. Yes, they were. Russell Shepard is, so far he's just lights out, playing terrific receiving in training camp. Michael Vick even said in the press conference that he's extremely impressed with him. He's running crisp routes. He's catching the ball well. I haven't seen him drop one pass, and he's showing some really good speed and smarts with getting open. And I think that's really going to stick well with Chip Kelly if he can continue to produce in the preseason. But then that brings me to the question, plus Ifeanyi Moma is a rare, he's 6'8". That's a basketball player size. And he really gets low for a really tall player. He didn't have big stats at Boston College, so I don't need to look them. But can you, Santai, pull up Russell Shepard's college stats for he's a receiver. So, but, Ifeanyi Moma, he gets really low for being tall. He really goes down and gets catches, which is tough for some tall players. And he's got really good speed. But what they're saying about him is his hands are really good. They're soft and they're good. Give me Russell Shepard's stats at LSU.
2012, he had 92 yards,
Oh, God.
161 92 yards and 0 touchdowns. 2011, 190 yards, 4 touchdowns, a little bit better season. 2010, 254 yards and 1 touchdown.
That doesn't help my case. But, yeah, the cow, hence why he probably wasn't drafted. But you go in on a clean slate. Clearly Chip Kelly saw something in him. And, to me, he's got to earn a spot, and so far he's doing it. And I think it just depends on how many receivers they're going to keep, because Deshaun's a lock. Jason Avant's going to make the team. Riley Cooper, to me, will, and Demarcus Johnson, those 4. And then Aurelius Ben just can't get on the field. He hasn't practiced in almost a week. I believe it's practice number 6, and he only practiced the 1 day, so he's missed 5 days of practice due to a knee injury. To me, if he plays, that he's a lock. And so, there's 5. And then there's, to me, if there is a spot, honestly, unless Aurelius Ben doesn't make it, if he gets cut, then that spot is Ifeanyi Moma's or Russell Shepard's. And if they keep 6, they might go both of them. I think one's going to make the roster, though. I don't think both will make it. But it's just, I don't want to let that size go. And I think you can't hide him on the practice squad. His rare size, he's 6'8". That's just, it's so obsessing over how tall he is.
Very tall.
Very tall, right.
Very.
So, that's that. Eagles practice tomorrow. Today they practiced in the bubble as it was raining in Philadelphia at the NovaCare Complex. That's going to do it for today's Eagle Eye Focus Sports Talk podcast. Thanks for joining me and my producer, Santai.
Bell.
Follow me on Twitter at DB Sports Talk. Sammy, where can they find you on Twitter?
Sammy DB Sports. And stay tuned for our next Eagle Eye Focus when we're going to interview David Sims.
And we will also be having Emery Hunt on from Football Game Plan this weekend as well, as he is in Philadelphia for training camp.
Some great things coming up.
Yeah, so Eagles got some injuries. Preseason's coming up. The NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame enshrinement is Saturday, so some notable guys. Former Eagle Chris Carter is going into the Hall of Fame. Warren Sapp, famous head coach of the New York Giants and New England Patriots, Bill Parcells. And a lot more headlines in the Hall of Fame game. No more Sundays without football. Football is back. That's going to do it again. Check out my blogs at eaglesportstalk.blogspot.com. And that's going to do it. Adios, Eagles Nation.